Whoa.
Good morning, everybody. This is Gossamer Silver Needle. Look forward to today's session. Before we actually march off on today's session, which is the white tea, by the way, just in case you're confused, I want to thank you, and then I want to tell you some stories of the shop to give you some more understanding of the shop. So first off with the thanks. I want to thank Erica because she sent me an email which talked about how Sylvan Symphony is listed on the website and how it looks like every cup is $200 a cup. And I'm thinking to myself, that's not even possible. Well, of course, I know it's possible, but not likely. And so I look back at the website and I think, well, everything's in good shape. So I wrote back to Erica with the math, and she said, yeah, I understand how to do math. I'm real good at math. Do you see how your starting point is not the right starting point? I went back and looked again, and she was right. So sometimes we're so used to how we do shortcuts and how we think about the tea that we're selling. And in this case, this was a shortcut we had listed by ounce on the website when we only sell this as a cake. And so the result is everything was discombobulated, including how it was listed on the website. I've looked at that particular part of the website about 10,000 times, and it wasn't until Erica did the math, so to speak, and pointed it out. And so this is great. Thank you all when you do stuff like this, because I look at this all the time and I think, yeah, I'm right, except when I'm wrong. And so it's great that you are patient and point these things out. So this is an appreciation for the feedback that you give us. Next, let's talk a little bit about the shop from another angle, because this week it was highlighted a couple times. So this next story, for those of you who only like to hear PC things, you need to cover your ears for the next 3 or 4 minutes, because I'm going to say some non-PC things. But these are quotes. It's not me saying it. It's quotes of what was said in the story. So last Sunday, I'm in here. It's busy. It's probably about 9:40, and a Chinese lady walks in. Probably, realistically, she's probably 70, but boy, oh boy, does she look just barely above 50. Comes in, dressed to the nines, says, I have a reservation. That's fine. Go ahead and have a seat. The rest of the party's coming. And I vaguely remembered that there was a party coming. And it didn't matter because we had seats. So she's sitting down. Then, about 5 minutes later, 2 younger people, one Chinese ethnicity and one not, who've both been here before, once from Connecticut, and she's out here visiting again. And the lady who's of Chinese ethnicity is related to the lady who first came in. She is her godmother. Now, wait a minute, who's the she? The older lady is the younger lady's godmother. So you could tell that the older lady was really, not comfortable as she was looking at the board. She didn't recognize the names. So she said, when they came to the counter, she said, I'm here to protect these 2 younger ladies and make sure that you're not some white guy trying to pull the wool over their eyes about Chinese tea.
That's a quote?
That's a quote.
Oh.
And I'm behind the counter. My expression doesn't change, but inside I'm laughing like crazy. I'm not insulted because, you know, I feel worse when Chinese people come in speaking Chinese and use a derogatory term for a white guy, not realizing that I understand both the proper term and the derogatory term, and I understand Chinese. But this lady just said it. I mean, there was nothing, there was no varnish or anything. Point, right there. And I said, man, believe me, this is the real deal. And she says, well, I'm checking. I said, that's fine. Took their order, they sat down. And part of the issue was this lady hadn't seen Bijou behind the counter because when she first came in, Bijou wasn't here. And so she just thought, oh, well, this is the wrong race, you know, with this type of a shop. So I go back to the table and deliver tea, and I use an honorific to address her, almost as if she's a relative. And she looks at me and she kind of gives me, you know, an appraising eye. And she says, you're serving me the real stuff, aren't you? And again, it was so funny, I couldn't feel insulted. And I said, well, of course I'm serving all of you the real stuff. And then she switches to English and says, I'm really picky. And I went to Chinese and I said, you are picky. And so we had this exchange. In the meantime, the goddaughter, I think, was wildly embarrassed by the whole situation and trying to figure out a way how to contain it. It was uncontainable because you had these two people kind of doing this dance. The end point of this story is by the time they left, the older lady said, yeah, this is the real stuff, and I will be back again. So it all had a good end. It was just funny how it got to that end. But this is step one of a multi-step layer, a multi-step story. So we had one of the local business owners who's Chinese come in, and I've told you about him before because everything is the best. You know, you gotta have the Cartier, you have to have the chains that, you know, cost $7,000 or $8,000. If you're not wearing shoes that aren't $5,000 a pair, you're not wearing shoes. Everything is always in place with this guy when he comes in. And this is the guy, and I've told some of you, and some of you may remember this story, who, and here comes a slight digression. Every great tea shop has a secret vault. We're no exception. And so he's had stuff from our secret vault before. And then this part of the story, some of you may remember, he secretly went back to China thinking he could find this stuff, and he couldn't. And from that point forward, he's really come to understand that we do and are able to get really interesting and unique teas here. Well, he had another one of these come to Jesus moments this week because we had said, okay, we've got this special yellow tea. By the way, I know we're doing white tea today, and I haven't gotten there yet, but I want to get through this story. All right, we're doing this special, yeah, he knows we have this special yellow tea, and he says, I'm going to come in, this was last week, I'm going to come in this week, I'm going to set aside time because I want to try this stuff. I've heard of it, I want to enjoy this stuff. And so he comes in and announces, and all our customers around here, yes, I want that $38 a cup tea. And so sits down and actually watches us brew, and there's a special way of brewing it, and so he appreciated that. And then we have a video of us with the leader who is an iconic tea figure in China. And we showed him that, and he said, this is a whole nother level. And he just kept talking about that because he understood our access is at a whole nother level. And he followed it up next day by bringing his business partner in and making him have a cup of tea. And also, again, talking about the access that we have into the tea world in China, which is a very unusual access. So those are the important things that happened this week, because it's most of the time people don't really appreciate fully what we have here. And it's nice when you get that vindication from somebody on the outside who, when they see what they see and taste what they taste, they say, oh, yes, this is another level. Gossamer Silver Needle. We're now at the white tea. Fuding. You remember from your maps last week that Fuding is on the eastern side of Fujian province, right on the ocean, almost on the ocean. It's a mountain, and it's really thought of as the ancestral home of all Fuding teas. Now, when you start talking about ancestral homes, when you start talking about things that may or may not have occurred 3,000 or 4,000 years ago, can we say this with absolute authority? And the answer is no. But they're fun to talk about because these are the stories that currently exist. So let's look at history a little bit. They discovered, the Chinese, I should say, have discovered some ancient ruins of villages at the base of Taimu Mountain. And these are dated back about 4,000 to 5,000 years. The story of the origin of Fuding tea goes back to 4,000 to 5,000 years. So these have kind of been linked up. And you have, I don't know whether they're real figures, but you have icons that are representative of stories that have been passed down through the generations. So you have one called Taimu Niang Niang, the old lady of Taimu. Langu, this is a name of a villager, a female villager. And by the way, let's back up a minute. The ruins indicate that these were probably led by women, these villages from 4,000 to 5,000 years ago. So it's not inconsistent that you have a woman as a key component of these iconic stories. In all cases, there is a link to some spiritual Taoist stories. There's a link almost to a shamanism background. All of these things are linked together, but it's all around this tea. And this tea has a traditional name. It's green snowbud tea. And really what it's referring to, what it seems to be referring to, is Fuding Da Bai Cha. So Fuding big leaf tea. But the fancy name is green Qing Shui, let's see, green bud tea. Qing Shui Cha Ya. So green bud tea, and it's referred to snowbud, Shui Ya Cha. It's referred to as this green bud tea. What is famous about this? Why through the ages has this been passed down? Because this tea is said to have been what they used to do, and this was either Langu or Taimu Nyang Nyang, whichever the leader, but it's always some woman who would pick the buds. Usually they find it in a cave, the plant actually in a cave in the mountain. They recognize that, oh, this is useful to human health. It's really good at dealing both with people who have measles and preventing others from getting measles. So there's this thought that this tea from early on had a relationship to skin. And up, time warp up to today, and scientists say white tea is particularly good for skin. So this legend, this story is linked to something that they saw when they were chewing this tea. Yes, you heard me correctly, chewing, not drinking, because in the beginning, they were picking the buds, drying them, and when they were trying to prevent measles or cure measles, they have the patient chew on the bud. And so this goes back at the beginning of the sessions when we did Jewel. We talked about the white tea, the real origin maybe occurring a couple thousand years ago, but then never really standardized the way it is today. Well, this could be part of that story, because if you're picking and sun drying and then using, essentially, this tea, white tea in general, especially in the traditional modality, is you pick, you sun dry, you separate, and then you sun dry some more. And if it's not all the way ready to go, you bake it. So it's not so different than what they or how they were apparently using it before. And so all of these stories can be grouped in either the category of enrichment or the category of health. So from an enrichment standpoint, there's a story that one of the ladies that I just talked about, either Langu or Taimun Nyang, had a peasant who was particularly poor off and was having a hard time making ends meet. They brought the peasant up to the cave. They gave him some of this green snow bud, the tea bush. He planted it, and then over the ages, his family became enriched. So that's the enrichment story. And there's several offshoots of that, including the peasant found it himself. Then you have the Taimu Nyang Nyang and the Langu stories that are grouped around helping kids who came down with skin maladies, using buds from this particular bush to help alleviate their conditions. So you have that category of story. Right in between, you have the stories of ascetics. So that would be like Taoists, basically Taoists, who they would consume these. It would help keep them awake and able to meditate and able to maintain their strength. So you have all sorts of stories associated with this. So now, as you think about this, one of the things that's going to cross your mind in a short bit is, wow, if there were these stories back then, perhaps there are ancient tea trees. So this is a really good train of thought, and it's a really useful way to think about this particular area, because they do have, so let's get rid of the word temporarily ancient because the old trees that they have are not ancient, but they are wild. They do have wild trees growing, and these wild trees are said to be the progenitors of the Fuding Dabayecha, of the tea bush that's used to make things like Gossamer Silver Needle, things like Comfort from last week. So this is a long introduction, and we've not spent much time about legend. And this is legend. And clearly, legend somehow touches history. But if you're asking me, especially when I'm wearing this particular outfit, to tell you authoritatively that this thing is true or that thing is true, I can't do it. But I can tell you they must be related. I'm sure they're related. That would be as close as I can come to talking about that particular aspect. All right. I've talked a lot already, and we have barely even talked about white tea. Are they making Gossamer Silver Needle the same way, essentially, as they make Comfort? The answer is yes. Are the varietals the same? The answer is no. They are different varietals, not by a lot. They're not genetically different by a lot, but from a terroir point of view, they are different. The land is different. So therefore, yes, there is a difference. And you're going to taste that difference today. So instead of me trying to talk through any more details of that difference, what I'm going to do is ask the tea master whose symbolism is of cats, to come up today and use that cat sense and brew this wonderful Gossamer Silver Needle. So without further ado, Biju, the tea master.
Thank you. Yeah. Hi, good morning. Yeah, 早上好. Yeah, my name is Biju. Yeah, Biju. Yeah. So we do white tea, white tea, so called green snow bar.
Applause and love as feedback from the participants. They're welcoming you.
Oh, really? Oh. Thank you. Thank you. It's like, okay. This is also, so yeah. So yeah, right now looking at how it's just bag. Yeah, just bag.
Just buds.
Yeah.
Just like Comfort.
Yeah, we try, huh? So.
Oh, what kind of buds? Those buds look kind of fat. Ooh. And they look kind of white too. They look like they have hairs on them.
Yeah.
All right, the usual setup. And this tea is done at 175 degrees. 4 grams, which is pre-measured. It's in bag number 3. So when it's your turn, look for bag number 3. It's 2 minutes for the first steep, 1 minute for the second, and 1 minute for the third. This gets 3 great steeps.
On brewing time, apologies, said 2 minutes for the first.
Yes.
1 minute for the second.
Yes.
For the third, right? For
1
the
minute
diet.
for the third.
1 minute for the third, so 2, 2, 1.
2, 1, 1.
2, 1, 1. Apologies. Yes.
And so you notice she's heated up all the cups. 2 cups is all you really need. We use 3 to cool down things faster. But 2 is plenty.
I asked on brewing time because the email mentioned 2, 1, 2. as the.
Follow the email, because the email is always 100% correct. The fact that I haven't had enough tea this morning and that I have misremembered is not a reflection on the tea master, and it's not a reflection on the tea itself. It is the normal understudy mistaken behavior.
If you can control temperature, you can make the, the full times. So, but the temperature very important. So right now I use the 175, right?
Yes.
Ah. It's a
You
good.
notice the rhythm? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't. Just a steady
Yeah.
rhythm. Not in a hurry.
One more card. Howard. Silky. Silky, you can see, the trichome, under the glass.
You
So,
see
yeah,
those white hairs, the trichomes on the glass. Remember, those trichomes are full of polyphenols. So if you were able to individually taste them, it would be bitter. She pours the water, tea master pours the water back into the kettle so that she can control the pour into the cup. And you may not have heard accurately what she just said when she was explaining. What she said was that if you handle this carefully, you can actually get 4 great cups of tea from every 4 grams. Most of the time, people are a little bit in a hurry, and so they soak it all out by 3. But if you pour on the sides, you pour underneath and so forth, you can get 4 great cups. The production of this tea is no different essentially than comfort. So you separate the buds from anything else you picked, you sun dry. And then again, this is using the Fuding more modern way. You roll them a little bit. And by rolling them a little bit, you don't damage the trichomes, but you get a little bit more flavor out of them. So some of the manufacturers actually do that. In this case, he does. And it's hand rolled, by the way. There is no machine that can roll just a little bit. A machine either rolls or it doesn't roll. When you hand roll, that you're able to do in just the right amount of force to get the result without damaging the final product. And after that, if it's dried enough, you sort through one more time to make sure there's no little rocks or stems or anything else that shouldn't be in there. And then you pack away. If it's not dried enough, then you would very lightly bake it until it got down to about 3 to 5% moisture left in the leaves. Left in the buds, not the leaves. All right, timer has gone off. Not in a hurry, just very steady. Want to capture all of this. All right. So the first thing is it's very light. it's light, but there's all sorts of trichomes in there. So you know there's some action going on. You want to enter the quality arena. And you also want to get your notes out from last week because this is different from comfort. It's different from jewel. So we're going to enter the quality arena and we're going to take 175-degree sip and get enough on the tongue in order to determine where we're detecting astringency. Is there a right answer? No. Everybody's genetically different, so there is the answer related to you. Swallow, aftertaste, and then energetics. Energetics in this shop is defined the physicality of how you feel or how it makes you feel. So let's do it. No, let me do it. It's distinctive. And I understand where I'm getting some astringency. I don't have much of an aftertaste yet. I don't have energetics yet. Second time around, I'm still focusing on that, but I'm also focusing on aroma and flavor. And I should have been focusing on carefully swallowing. So all of those things, it goes without saying, you've got to be careful with. I'm going to make a third since I kind of messed up the second. Okay, now I'm on course with aroma, with taste. Okay, I'm getting a little bit of energetics. Still working on that aftertaste. All right, it's your turn to brew. Remember to set your timer for 2 minutes. 175-degree water. If it's a little cooler, that's a good error. If it's hotter, that's not a good error.
So I told you, if you can control, the temperature, you can make the, the 4 times. Yeah, you can try. Yeah, low temperature, very important. So this tea very tender, just about. This I made the tea at home. I can, made it 4 times. So
Just a nice steady rhythm. Not in a hurry. Making sure that the water is aerated, steam is dissipated. Getting your package number 3 labeled Gossamer.
it's my style. So do one more time. So this is on purpose. Yeah. Why? I use this cup, so hard for me. So like, the bug wake up. So I shake him right now. So you can look in, yeah, This is the technique.
The water back into the kettle so that you can control where the water lands in the cup. And in effect, she's trying to pour underneath the tea leaves. All right. Set the 2 minutes. So there is something else that occurred this week, and this has occurred actually quite often because there's a myth. And while I love Greek myths and Persian myths and Egyptian myths, those are all fun. Chinese myths, all of those are lots of fun. Chiropractic, qigong, acupuncture, acupressure myths, I don't enjoy. In fact, what I enjoy is talking about why they are myths. I don't know how this started, but there is the myth. And the reason I know it's a myth is because in China, they don't accept this. That if you do acupuncture, you should be drinking fermented tea. This is false. Every group of practitioners drinks the tea usually of their area. So, for example, if you're a Buddhist in the Wuyi Mountains, are you going to be drinking fermented tea? Only if you're not a true Buddhist, because true Buddhism takes account of what's in the area. And they drink cliff teas. We've been to Buddhist temples, they make their own cliff teas. What about Buddhists in Fuding? Maybe they drink black teas. And I'm sorry to have to disappoint everybody that that's false. They drink white teas. They make white teas. So this thought that fermented tea has some sort of spiritual, extra spiritual value, I want to thoroughly take care of that myth because it is a myth. And that's not how they view it in China. That's not how they view it in the temples. You drink the tea that you're familiar with. You drink the tea that you like. And usually that's the tea in your area. So Buddhists who live in the green tea area in Anhui, they're not drinking fermented tea. They're drinking the wonderful green tea that they produce in that area. Acupuncturists, the same. And how did this myth arise? Great question. Oh, by the way, you have separated the tea leaves from the tea. You're entering the quality arena, and I'm talking along here while you're having a chance to take notes and compare and so forth. So how did this rumor start? I don't know exactly, but what I do know is that people sell into this. What do I mean by that? There are certain people who sell teas from China, and somehow they have planted, particularly among acupuncturists and chiropractors, this thought that, oh, if you're not drinking this, how can you be any good at acupuncture? When you hit that needle, you're going to hit the wrong spot if you're not drinking fermented tea. Nothing could be further from the truth. So I just don't want you to feel badly if you enjoy acupuncture but don't enjoy fermented tea, or vice versa. You enjoy fermented tea and you're not an acupuncturist, or you go to an acupuncturist and they tell you, oh, you get extra benefit. That would be false. You don't get extra benefit. That's not how the Chinese view this. Okay, I got off on a digression. I apologize. Now, let's get back to Gossamer. So you're going through the quality arena now. You're tasting this. You're thinking about Comfort last week. You're thinking about Jewel the week before. And while you're thinking, let me tell you one more thing about Taimu Mountain. The other thing that's a little unusual about this mountain is it actually snows some years there at the higher elevation. So it does get cold. In a way, you can think of this as an area much like Tumuguan, where it's almost 7,000 feet above sea level, and occasionally it snows. And what that does is it reduces the number of days of full sunshine, and that has an effect on the final product.
First comment, Aaron shares that the trichomes dance in the sun as I drink down into the cup. This tea is like a secret. It takes its time opening up to you as you drink it. It's smooth, it's slightly viscous, and with a slightly juicy aftertaste. Sense of sense of wet hay and grasses swirl in my nose as I smell the wet leaves. There's a lot there.
There is a lot there. Erin goes through a ton of feelings as she goes from dry leaves to the liquid to wet leaves. And some of the things that right away stand out as a highlight are it's viscous. Normally, you don't think of white tea as viscous, but Erin's nailed it. This is one of the things that Gossamer, it's especially noted for, and the Chinese know, hey, there's some viscosity here. She also said there's juiciness. So you have viscous and juicy, which is usually not quite what you get. So this is a little different sense of hay in the smell. Hay and what else?
Was hay and grasses in the wet leaves.
Hay and, thank you. Hay and grasses in the wet leaves. And at the very beginning,
the trichomes.
The
seeing them
trichomes,
dance
yeah.
in the sunlight as she's drinking the cup.
Love that part of the comment. So I noted when I was looking at the leaves, the dried leaves, very white, lots of trichomes. And so Erin has detected them in her cup, and she must be seeing it in a great place because the sun's shining right on that cup and highlighting the silveriness of those trichomes. There are a ton of trichomes in this tea. And this, by the way, is probably why white tea has such good effect on the skin, because they don't damage the leaf. You know, many of the other processes are a little bit hard on the leaves. Now, they leave a great flavor, but this leaves the leaf, so to speak, essentially intact. And so you're essentially getting all this great benefit from a tea leaf that's very, very lightly processed. Great comment, Erin.
Kathleen observes the dry leaves smelled sweet and almost malty, and the tea also has sweetness.
Sweet and malty in the smell of the dry leaves. And Kathy notes that the tea itself has just this hint of sweetness. This is straight on the money. I love this tea because it is sweet. It does have that scent of sweetness. And it's almost, while you all weren't looking, like I snuck one drop of honey in here.
Rob shares, the tea liquor has a round scent and it reminds me of the ocean. The flavor has a kind of sweetness that reminds me of the sweetness in halva.
Round scent, a sweetness in the flavor, just like in the sweetness of challah. Really good challah does have that sweetness to it, and almost a sense in the scent of the ocean, umaminess in the ocean. Great comment, by the way. So you're getting a whole slew of interesting comments. Little malty in the leaves, little oceany, little viscous, juicy, uniformly some sweetness in there, little hay in the wet leaves, grasses in the wet leaves. Yeah.
And sorry about that, Rob. Rob corrects me. It's halva, so he's getting
Halva.
a sweetness that's more like with something made with sesame.
Ah, okay, that's different.
A
A
different vibe.
sweetness, thank you very much. A sweetness reminding of halva, almost a sweetness with that you get from sesame, particularly and I'll modify that. And if this isn't the right modification, you can correct me. The black sesame seeds, because those, when I use those in cooking, there's always this kind of lingering scent of sweetness.
Peter shares he's getting a nice warmth and calming that pours centrally down into his lower belly and begins to radiate out.
Energetics. I love that we're talking about energetics. Peter has this sense of calmness being poured into him and going straight on down to the belly and grounding, bringing that sense of groundiness, calmness. You know, the world's a big bad place, but you know what? I'm bigger and I'm badder. Well, he didn't quite say it that way.
If that makes you calm.
If that makes you. Oops, sorry about that, Peter.
Iron
That
Man
was-
is very calm.
There you go. But you get the
Yeah,
point.
yeah, Peter says he'll go with that.
Okay. These are all great comments. And I again, particularly like the fact that you've swung around to the energetics, because one of the reasons I frequently start my day off with white tea, particularly if my thinking is chaotic or there's a lot going on, is I know that by the end of the cup, I will somehow have found a center. I will somehow have found a direction. And it's the tea. I like to pretend it's me. I like to pretend, oh yeah, I'm really great. I can bring those chaotic thoughts and get them all in order. That's not true. Not at all. It's the tea that helps me organize and helps me physically feel, okay, I can get a handle on this. I can get a grasp. And this is why we talk about energetics. So many times, what I find in discussion of energetics, which is usually called something on the outside, it's so abstract that it's really hard to grasp. But energetics of tea are not hard to grasp. Energetics of tea are real, and they have a real sense of feeling, a definable sense of feeling. And that's really important to understand. All right. As usual, all of you are all over this. You've taken good notes. This has been a great series. We like Jewel, Comfort, and Gossamer, and they're all different. And yet, none of them leaves the white tea playing field. The Jewel has a stronger sense to it in the beginning because it's got leaves in there along with buds. But all of these have their own character. And that's the thing we love about going to Fuding and Zhenghe and all the other places we go and collect white tea, because yes, they're identifiable as white tea right away, but it's all the subtleties of what they bring. And we typically, when we're going to the white tea areas, look at about 50 to 100 different ones. And then out of those, so this is why you're getting all these subtleties. This is why you're getting all these fabulous white teas, because we're looking at so many. Yes.
Stacy says, thanks for a great class and a great tea. I can now face my busy day.
Oh, thank you so much, Stacy. Yeah, I can face my upcoming busy day too. Yes.
Peter comments that a couple of factory pictures that you shared look modern enough to be in Napa. Can you talk a little bit more about their setup?
Yeah. So there are state-run factories, some state-run factories. The state-run factories are like modern vineyards. They've had money to keep modernized. They're usually big buildings. They all have great air conditioning. The warehouses are the way you would expect. Everything is neat and orderly and cool. And when we go to why do we ever go to a state-run processing area? We go because they get us connected. They know all the farmers. They get us connected to special farmers. So you notice in one of those pictures, there's a bunch of little plates full of tea leaves. And so in this particular state-run organization, they know us very well. And so they got out 50 or 60 of what they thought were the best. And then we went through tasting. And then after we selected what we thought was the best, we went out and visited the farms. So it's a way for us to shortcut. Otherwise, given the enormity of the area of China and the enormity of difficulty of trying to get from place to place, this is our way of shortcutting that, and our way of getting to farmers directly, and our way of being vetted right away. Because if the state-run organization calls ahead and said, oh, it's these two, remember we told you about these two? Oh, yes, send them right over. We'll be ready. Because again, we're extremely well known. And we're known in all the best ways because we want the best, we pay for the best, and there's never an argument with us. You give us the best, you leave the rest to us. All right.
Ooh, one more comment just snuck in.
Yeah.
Peter shares, Gossamer seems to me, if memory serves, to have had the most consistent astringency of the bunch of this round of 3 white teas that we tried.
Oh, that's a really interesting comment, and one I hadn't thought about before. So Peter shares that for him, the astringency is very consistent with Gossamer. And I don't remember who it was last week who mentioned that the astringency varied. And I do remember that comment, because they said in the beginning they didn't sense any astringency, and then at the end, oh yeah, there is astringency. And all of these teas have their own footprint, so to speak. And some of them, the astringency is right there and it is consistent, and some weaves in and out. Great catch with that. And that's one of the ways, by the way, that we're able to differentiate these teas, because we do take these notes, we do remember, and when we do the samples and then come back and work on Big Cup, we're thinking about what it was in China. And when Tea Masters brew for us, we're taking really, really accurate notes and then thinking about how do we incorporate that in this large cup. Great comment, Peter. All of you, you are all qualified to travel with us to China and help us pick teas. One of these years, we are going to have a trip. We actually, and you're hearing it here first, we actually are now beginning to believe we might be able to take a group next year. We're getting some indications that things are easing up and it might be easier to take a group. Now, listen to what I just said. Getting indications might take. We haven't sent out a notice that we're going. What we are telling you right now is we're feeling more optimistic than we felt when we first came back. So this is all good news. All right, next week we start a new set of 3. This is going to be an interesting set. For you green tea aficionados, you're going to be very happy. You're going to get the green light. You're going to sit and evaluate tapestries, and you're going to have satisfaction. Those are the 3 that we're going to cover in this next set. Be ready for an exciting journey. In the meantime, as COVID surges out there and the whole world seems to go to you know where, in here, in the tea family, we continue to be calm and continue to get the benefit of these teas. By the way, as a practical note, should any of you come down with COVID, right away, as soon as you suspect, use the red tea, brew any red tea strong, and then use it as an oral mouthwash for about 10 seconds. You can either swallow it or spit it out. And then take another mouthful and gargle for about 10 seconds. And do this 3 or 4 times a day. And what you're going to find is it doesn't cure COVID, but it may lessen the effect of COVID. So at any rate, stay healthy. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye now.
Take care, everybody. Bye.